Judy from Florida. Judy, welcome to KLEAN Radio.
Hi.
This is 3 weeks in a row,
This
Judy.
is 3-week Judy. Yeah.
3 weeks in a row, and this is probably the best week I've had. I just want to let you guys know that you've been so helpful.
Okay, let's just. Judy has been to people out there that are just tuning into KLEAN Radio. Judy has been smoking marijuana for the better part of 18 years. Stop me if I'm wrong. You drink sometimes too, excessively.
I do drink sometimes.
Right. Life's a mess recently.
Life has been a mess recently, just job change and just rock bottom, essentially. I've hit rock bottom for the first time in my life.
And so what's going on now? So last week, after last week's show, you said you were going to try to do a couple days without smoking.
I was going to try to do 7 days again. I know you guys have been challenging me to go 7 days, and I made it until Tuesday. And what happened was I had an idea. I created an art project, and the art project is called What Is Your Vice? And I was trying to go through, like, gambling and marijuana and coke and just basically create this table. And I found an old water pipe, and that old water pipe happened to have a hit of weed in it. So I hit that pipe on Tuesday. So I did relapse on Tuesday. But I've been clean since Tuesday.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
Well, thank you. But the hard part is that I wanted to just confront my parents and come clean with my parents that I do have a problem. And I did confront them on Friday. And the issue now is that my mother, who's my best friend, really doesn't think that I have a problem at all. She thinks that I just use it as a crutch. She's like, you're 37 years old, you need to get your act together. Basically, I found out in that conversation that she doesn't mind smoking marijuana occasionally either.
Well, you answered the question I was going to ask. But do you guys ever smoke together?
No, I would never even want to smoke with my mother. No.
I'm sorry, Judy. It's not that funny.
No, I would have that same reaction if somebody asked me that question. But so here's the question that I have for you. You know, and Andrew, this goes to you too. You hear this a lot. People say, "Oh, it's a crutch," and usually you hear it a lot when people are getting sober and they're going to meetings. You hear people saying, "Oh, that 12 steps is a crutch."
Well, you know, I don't think that that's necessarily wrong. I mean, to some degree, it is a crutch. A crutch symbolizes something. Yeah, if you got a broken leg, and you got to get around. You need a crutch to get around.
Nobody ever says to you, ever notice that, right?
The underlying implication, though, is that a crutch is a moral, you have some sort of moral failure, and that, you're using this to supplement what should be already existing in you naturally. And that, you just need to, get a stiff upper lip and hang in there and just
pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Yeah, just, and not understanding actually what you're suffering with. And one of the things I like to talk to parents about, and people that are dealing with people that are addicted, is that, who would want to come out and tell their mother that they've been going through this long struggle and problem with a drug, unless it was so painful and so damaging to them that they were asking for help.
Exactly. It was so painful. Like, I would say, my boyfriend is right here. He's my biggest support. And I would say probably, Monday, Tuesday was my rock bottom, like crying all day. How am I going to tell my mother? This is so embarrassing. She's going to be so ashamed. And, I mean, it was the complete opposite of that. But at the same time, it wasn't the response that I needed.
Well, it's funny.
Either. Like, I just feel like she doesn't understand that I really do. Like, I still have cravings. I have been doing well, but I do, like Friday night when I met them, it probably wasn't the best environment because my mother says, okay, come meet us, but it was at a bar, Blue Martini. I don't know if you got those out in California, but it was a bar, and we were drinking, and it probably wasn't the best environment, but it was the only chance that I feel I could see her and tell her.
Right. I don't know. This
doesn't matter the name of the bar. I mean, if it was called the Crap Hole, and there was booze, I'd go.
I mean, Tony, this sounds a lot like sort of what you were talking about earlier about shame and dealing with, having to confront your fear about people saying, "Hey, you don't have a problem," or "Hey,
you're a loser.
You're a loser. What's wrong with you? I can smoke pot." So what would you recommend saying to Judy? Like,
well, the one thing I'd say to Judy before when you'd said that you'd stopped Tuesday, And Judah had said, that's really great, fantastic. And you were like, well, yeah, okay, thank you. As if you were trying to diminish the fact that you hadn't done any drugs in 5 days. And it doesn't matter if you hadn't done a drug in 1 day. The whole thing about all of the 12-step programs, which they all come from the father program or the grandfather program
or the mother program
which is AA.
Yeah,
is about
I'm not familiar with the 12-step at all.
Well, anyway, what they say in the meetings is that the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So in your case, you obviously have a desire to stop using.
But if you're calling a radio show for 3 weeks saying that that's a desire, and I'm saying that, Judy, I say that with all the sincerity in my heart, is that you're like at this point, and we talk about this a lot. It's like where it's not working anymore, really. Where you want to get high and you don't want to get high, but you're like in this like purgatory. Because neither is going well.
Right. I think it's important to note, Judy, that you're in a window right now, and people that are addicted to substances have momentary windows, and sometimes they can last hours, sometimes they can last a few weeks, sometimes maybe a couple months. But eventually people sort of get tired if they don't get the help they need, and they immediately go back into using, and that they can go on another binge for like 3-4 years. And I think that's the danger that I sort of hear in what you're talking about. You said you've tried to stop smoking, you're having some success, but you're not really getting the support you need from your family
and drinking
or friends.
A little bit.
And then I heard that you're drinking, and drinking is definitely a trigger for smoking pot again. And the effects of alcohol could easily replace what you've used marijuana for. So that's, sobriety is about figuring all that out, not just not using a substance, but trying to figure out what's the underlying problems that are driving you to use that substance to numb yourself and not feel pain.
If you can, before you light up again, if you do light up again, just ask yourself the question whether, just right before you do it, say, is this trip absolutely necessary? And no, seriously, just say, is this trip absolutely necessary, to Gaga land? And if it is, or, we ask yourself that question and then say, are there any consequences that I might face as a result of this? And am I willing to face them? And if you can get through those questions, then smoke away.
Judy, I know part of you also wanted to go to rehab. Has changed or stopped from you wanting to go and get help?
Nothing has changed. I know that Andrew made a good point last week. It's like, how about the money that you're spending in weed? Instead, you get some health insurance and address your medical issues, which are mainly anxiety, and I know I'm OCD and I'm ADD. And marijuana has the opposite effect on me. It actually calms me down instead of creates more anxiety. So I think that, Andrew really hit it last week. Judy, you really hit it last week. And I think what I need is just to address it medically. I think maybe outpatient rehab would get it. What's just so frustrating is that I feel that my mother doesn't understand that I really do have an issue with it.
Right.
And
well, one thing you could start doing is you could stop, I think, if you can, stop saying that it does some kind of therapeutic good thing for you, like saying, well, it doesn't ramp me up, it calms me down. It doesn't do any of those things.
By the way, you're listening to KLEAN Radio Live.
It's not something to calm you down. You have the illusion that you're being calmed down, but it's not. I mean, I used to think that, when I drank, it would settle my day and it would help me to relax, and it didn't.
Right. That's the thing about drugs and alcohol is that, in the end, especially what I was referring to, Judy, is that in the beginning when you smoke pot, you drink, you do stuff, there is a certain, obviously it's fun.
Right.
It's fun but eventually when you cross over into that addiction point, and Andrew could talk about that a little bit more, is that it stops working.
Well, Judy, we actually have other calls. I do want to make one last point real quick, and I would like you to call again next week, Judy. But the last point I just want to make is that, you don't need your mother's validation to get help. You need to seek the strength within yourself. And in some ways, seeking outside validation that you have a problem and looking for that outside support to fix you is part of the problem.
And Lord knows Andrew and I both know this.
Yeah, you really need to sort of own it yourself and say, no matter what my mom thinks, no matter, my boyfriend's great, there's one, positive, but it's got to come from you. You have to make the decision that this is something that you want to do for yourself.
I'll tell you what, Judy, you're gonna call back next week. I want you to do us one favor here before next week. You ready? And I know your boyfriend, you said, is sitting next to you. Go to a 12-step meeting.
He'll go with me.
Okay, so you promise?
I promise we'll go. He does not have his kids next week, and we'll go next week.
Okay, and you'll call us up and you'll tell us how it went.
Well, I'm kind of nervous and don't know what to expect, but I'm going to go. I'm going to check out some meetings that we have here in the area. You guys are so awesome. This is the cleanest I've been in like 3 years.
And that's clean with a K.
Amazing. You've been so helpful.
You're going to go into a room. You're going to be in a room. The people in there are going to feel and sound and think exactly like you do.